Welcome back. All right, today we are going to finish the hydro flush and the drain valve and do my stand for the pump. So I'm going to go through um, each build out of basically how I put that all together for my system, and kind of go through and explain what I'm thinking and how it's coming together so far. So first thing is looking at this is we can see that I need to at least I thought I was going to lay it out this way, and I may change it a little bit, but I'm pretty sure this is what I'm gonna have. So I've got the water coming out of the chambers, coming in up and through to the pump, and the pump going out into the hydro flush valve, and then the hydro flush valve heads on all the way up to the vortex. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the hydro flush valve, and here it is in the box. I'm going to have to obviously make some holes in the box so that I can fit those. I'm pretty sure they're 3-inch pipe coming in through there, and so I'll go ahead and cut out a hole for the hose. I wanted to keep the box integrity as good as I could, so I didn't cut it all the way to the bottom where I can easily just lift it up and put it back down. So I'm actually going to run the pipe through it, and but I had to keep it as low as possible. The top of the hydro flush with that lid on barely just skims it with it all the way down to the floor. So I had to really just make sure I could fit the hydro flush valve in with the lid on. And here it is in the dirt, pretty much where I'm going to put it in position of right next to the sieves. So first thing I'm going to do is mark it, make sure I've got a good clear indication of how much slack I'm going to need on the upside of the hose going up to the vortex. And if you look closely on the hose as I've cut it, I actually labeled each of the rings. With it being so tight in there and awkward, I wanted to make sure once I put that glue on there that the hose sat incorrectly on that valve, and that did it. So if you look at the next photo, you can see it's between the 4 and 5 lines in on the valve, and so I got that in. I've got the flush valve on the outside. I went ahead and put that in, and that seemed to do pretty well. I'm going to put down the mesh on the bottom. So once I get this completed, I'm going to fill that with river rock. And the only thing you're going to see is the top of that valve and the handle to move it to either direct water up into the bottom of the vortex, where it will just naturally come out for the waterfall, or it's going to go up and out of that through the flush valve, where it will be able to clean out the system without having me have to do too much work or muss. It's a pretty cool system. So here it is with not me completing the inlet to that valve. I'm going to do the pump very last on the waterfall. That way, as I'm still working up on the hill and moving rocks, if something were to come tumbling down, I'm not have to worry about it hitting the valve, hitting the pump. So I've actually bagged off the inlet to the valve and made sure no dirt can get in while I'm still working on it. I also made sure that the outtake of that valve, I'm going to seal up all those. You could have very easily have used some of the sealant you're going to put on the waterfall and kind of sealed that up, but I didn't do it. I just went ahead and used this. I figured once I get it all put together, that'll be just fine. And so here's the valve and its current state. And so the next step I'm going to work on, or the next thing I'm going to show you, is how I put in the footing for the external pump. I actually went with the external pump because it's about a fraction, well, it's about half of the energy cost of a pump that's actually in the chamber, and I just wanted a system that's going to run as efficient as it could. So I need to make something for it above ground. As you can see here, I'm going to go with cinder blocks. I'm going to put them stacked up like this and put river rock inside those to kind of give me extra drainage in this. So if I ever have a tremendous amount of water in this area, I'm going to have the pump sitting up a little bit higher, and you can see here I can very easily raise it up by just basically Adding more brick to the top of that, putting river rocks in there, just kind of gives me an extra amount of security that I'm not going to flood out that pump. I'm also going to, if you look in the left, there's the PVC pipe there. I'm going to create that into just a drain that's made specifically to work with the pump area, so that if any water does get in there and it gets to the point where it's going to flood that pump, it's going to have that drainage coming out of that area. So I'm pretty positive with the way I have it set up that I shouldn't have any problems with that pump flooding out. One thing to make sure you want to do is wherever you put that pump, make sure it's level. Make sure that the surface you're going to put that on is going to allow the water entering and exiting is on the level, the pump's level, and it'll just work better that way. And so here it is at that level without any bricks. You can kind of see exactly how I'm thinking of what it's going to work. Here it is at the top of that pump. You can barely see it. That's without the first layer of bricks on it, but it's going to give me some wiggle room so I can adjust that once I get all that area filled with river rock and figure out exactly how it's going to come together. Next thing I want to do is complete the inlet for the chamber. So even though the two chambers are, well, because they're connected at the bottom, I can just do an inlet on one of the chambers and it will fill both up. It'll be a float valve that will be attached to there, but it will allow the system to have water and fill it just automatically. So there is the inlet going into the system. Next part of what I needed to get done was the valve for the drain valve. I actually got this one. One of the last connections I made was probably one of my cleanest. You can see the drain valve there and the hose coming in. I could have put the drain valve and the hydro flush valve in the same box, but it would have been really tight for both of those. And buying one of these in-ground boxes was like 20 bucks, so I kind of just figured it's better to keep them separate. You can see here how it looks today, and you've got the drain box and the drain valve box and the hydro flush valve box are level. They're right next to and part of where the pump is, so when I do need to flush out that system, it's going to be all right in one spot. And it's going to bring us to where I'm at today. So right now everything that's highlighted in yellow has been completed, buried, and it looks like the only thing I really need to do before I finish the system and start working on the rubber mat that will seal in the whole heel is I need to work on getting some steps in that area right above the hydro chambers and the sieves, so that it's more secure. Right now it's kind of rough dirt, and I need to improve the stability of that hill, and I'm going to put some steps in there. So once I get the steps in there and I get the drainage done on the other side, drainage is probably 2 hours and it'll be done. Those steps will be a little bit longer, but once I get those done, and then I can start shaping that hill for how I want the water to come down it, and get that in and shaped, and then put the filament and then the rubber mat on top of it, and then I can actually turn it on. So that's where I'm at today, and I will be updating these videos as they come along. Eventually I'll have a video with its complete, and then I'll do another video 6 months in just to show you what the cleanup is. I'm hoping that the way the system is designed, that it's going to be as easy as I think it will be. Just simply reverse the pump from going to the bottom of the vortex to the top to clean it out, drain it into the yard, or if I've got drainage already into the street, and figure the best way I can handle that water coming out of it. But it's pretty hands off, so I'm pretty excited to get the system up and running. Alright, see you soon.